So today I just realized that almost every single moment I'm not doing something, even when I am doing something, I'm thinking. I'm just thinking. Now, what's up with that? Why do we? Sorry, I'm not going to say we because probably no one else thinks all day. Why do I think all day? Just think, think, think. What's my problem? It's like I it's like I feel just a strange need to just be thinking all the time. And where does this come from? I wonder. I wonder where it comes from. I mean, I gotta remind myself the answers won't come in the head. The answers won't come in my head in the form of thoughts. That's not where I'm gonna find whatever answer I'm looking for. So why am I thinking all the time? Well, I think one reason for it is avoidance. Is avoiding the circumstances. It was avoiding just like being present. Because when you're present, doesn't it feel uncomfortable? Why does it feel uncomfortable when you're present? Well, your karma is coming up. You're burning your karma when you're sitting presently as you are, just in and out. That's what's happening. That's why it's so hard to sit when you're present, because then things that you don't want to face and that you disassociated for in the moment when it happened come up. And so when it comes up, you want to disassociate even more. And that's when you start thinking about just bullshit. Just beer. It's our addiction. It's everybody's an addict unless they're healthy. Everybody's an addict, almost everybody, to thinking. Just to thinking. Why? I mean, I think I know why. And before I say this, I'm going to say a fact that I just found out yesterday, that the brain can only take 5 hours of work each day without blowing a gasket. Only 5 hours of work a day, of focused work. That's all the brain can take. Apparently, that's a fact backed by science, that the brain cannot maintain its healthy, normal operations after 5 hours of work each day. And how long are we working each day? On a usual work day, how long does work happen for? Happens where I work all day. Or I'm not gonna say we, but most of us, and this ties into what I was gonna say. For the reason why we think all the time, most of us are at work all day, and that's all we do. And no wonder the parents of the children of America traumatize their kids. No wonder. Because everybody's so burnt out, like these Cheez-Its. Their brain is toasted. Come home to these children who have energy and who have life, and these children expect their parents to be a good parent and to provide for them emotionally. And when that doesn't happen, the child's like, wait, what's wrong with me then? And the parent starts yelling at the other parent and fights almost every single night, or at least every weekend. And you think, are they getting divorced? Oh my God, like I don't feel safe in my own house. I don't feel safe in my own existence. What's going on? And so like we say, oh, well, we had a good childhood because we had food and we had a good house. And we were provided for physically. But then there's a blind eye turned to the behavior and to the needs of the child. What does a child need? A child doesn't just need toys. A child also needs food. That's right, food, entertainment. But then what else? What if? So physical safety, make sure they don't get killed. Yeah. But what if You make them feel unsafe in the attempt to try to keep them safe. And he doesn't. And these people don't even know what they're doing. Like almost all parents in America. So it's like no one talks about like the home life. That's like not like an issue in our life, in our society. Like, it's not something we focus on. No one talks about the personal life because we need to keep our personal life separate from our society life, right? Because we need privacy. How about privacy, safety, security? You gotta separate religion from state. But everybody knows that because we live in the same kind of society, and we have the same kind of minds, and we think the same kind of way, and we have the same kind of lifestyle, then the same kind of result will ensue in the household. There's going to be a lot of fighting between the parents. And then one parent, the parent that is the victim, will take out their anger on the kids. And then the kids will take their anger out on each other, especially the older one to the younger one. And then that younger one to the next, and so on, and then to the pet. So it's like a chain of abuse that everybody just turns a blind eye to because they don't want to face the truth of what kind of monsters they become, these parents. And so nobody really talks about that. We're in the reality show of reality in society, where it's the reality show. It's not real reality because we think about what we represent on the outside. So we show our outside to other people, and we try to present our families and ourselves a certain way. Say, "Oh, we're good, we're nice, right, Jimmy? Right? Yeah, he's a good boy." But nobody really sees reality for how it is. If people saw reality for how it is, they would see the pain in the child's eyes. They wouldn't. But instead, they just see the words, and they just see the smile. But no one sees the underlying stuff. That's not what we focus on. We don't focus on the background. We focus on the foreground. We don't focus on. It's like we get hypnotized to see things for how they are represented. So that's why any behavior out of the ordinary is discouraged. Is because anything out of the ordinary is represented as out of the ordinary, weird. I was gonna say, so the reason why we're all thinking, sorry, I'm not gonna say we all, me. The reason why I'm thinking all the time is because I was put in a bunch of rooms in one building for 6 hours a day since I was 6 years old. And then, actually, no, it was one room, and we got to go to lunch, we got to go to recess. Recess is cool, and then gym class sometimes, and art class, and music class. See, we got to move around a little bit. But for the main part of the day, we spent time in a room learning about things that, like abstract concepts, abstract conventions of society that people expect us to know. I mean, it's because you train a worker population, they need to know the conventions in order to move around, in order to do things for themselves.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
So it's like we gotta learn the conventions in order to be a worker. And because we have to do this, we are effectively ruined by education. But what does it consist of? What does education consist of in itself? We have to think, we have to learn how to think, and then we have to learn how to think about the things that we're presented with. And we got to think about the things we're presented with in terms of some way of thinking that we're given. And so regardless of We're taught how to think by someone else, right? And then with the ability to think that we're taught with the fashion in which we think, we use that method of thinking in order to think about things that we're given and presented with from other people. So it's like we don't come up with our own ideas. We're just given conventions and ideas and images from someone else. But that's not even the main point. The main point is you gotta take tests, you gotta take quizzes, pop quizzes. You always gotta be ready. And if you're not ready, then you're effed. And the whole point is that you gotta learn what will be on the test. You gotta remember it. Make sure you remember. And then the day of the test, you gotta regurgitate that information onto the paper. And that requires you to go back into your thinking, because all they teach us how to do is to think. And go back into your thinking and retrieve manually the information put onto the paper. But regardless of that, because sometimes the answers just come to people, right? Well, in school, when we're given all of this boring time, what we fill that time with to avoid being in a place that we don't want to be in, especially if you don't fit in. You fill that time with thinking about other things and fantasizing about other things. And so eventually you become addicted to thinking in itself, because that's all you're doing all day for years and years and years, 6 hours a day. You get 2 days of break, you get holidays, and then the summer. But then for the majority of your life, you're in a school, a mandatory school, a mandatory education resource center. What is this, 1984? And we just take it as normal. You have to learn. You must learn. That's a requirement of our society. And so in exactly that way, we get addicted to thinking. But especially if you get good grades, you start to rely on your thinking to solve all your problems. So if you got a problem you can't figure out, you got some sort of impossible problem or some sort of conflict in your life that you want to process and think about, or maybe that you don't want to process or think about. You use thinking to avoid that, or you use thinking to solve the problems, the alleged problems in your life. And some problems you have are impossible problems that you could never solve. And so that's why we're thinking all the time. And we're not thinking in the right way. We're not trying to use our mental faculty in the proper way. Not only because we're making it the master, but also because the master is pretty stupid. I mean, if we had some sort of different education that could educate us in some sort of different way, make our minds sharper and more confident and less riddled with illusions, then surely if we made the mind the master, then that master would be wise enough to say, okay, I shouldn't be a master. But because our brains have been taught by the US government to be village idiots, basically, they're not, your mind wants to control because it's a fool. Your mind has been made a fool in this alleged education we get. Well, what I really think the point of education is, in this whole conspiracy of this whole society, your entire life has been a conspiracy. Your entire life you've been living in a business. And you're the product. Your entire life, everything you know, all of your patriotism, all of your loves, everything you think you know. This entire place has been a conspiracy the entire time. And you're the product. They're selling humans. And they want the human being to be a useless Fred Flintstone. That's the goal. And it's carefully set up. You have their formative years. We take care of their formative years, okay? So we're the ones in charge of their subconscious. Because when you're a child, up to the age 25, right? And that's around the time you end college, if you continue your education. After like 22 or 23. We control your formative years. We control all of the downloads into your subconscious. And so we control exactly how you feel, exactly how you think, and we put it in there, right? Just like we put it in your parents, and their parents put it in them, your parents put it in you, and we put it in you more. Reinforce those ideas, right? And then around the age of maybe 25 nowadays, 30, 35, 40, 50, it starts to kick in. All the stuff they put in you starts to kick in. And you don't know what happened. You don't know what's going on. But they tricked you into making your mind the master. They put all sorts of ideas in your head. I'm trying to think, how specifically did they do this? What specific ideas did they put in your head? Well, that's why I'm going to read this book today and tell you all about the false sense of identity that this society instills in you. And so, the reason why I call this the reality show is because we're not living in reality. We're living in the show of reality. A representation of reality, right? We see things for how they're represented, but we don't see things for how they are. If we really saw things for how reality actually was, most people would shit their pants if they saw reality exactly for how it was. But we see reality for the image it's presented. Like, we see this in a certain way. U.S. passport. No, my country. Really, your identification card? So you can keep track of you? Yeah, you gotta know where you're going. So, I mean, it's crazy. They put us in a psychotic delusion. Literally a psychotic delusion. And I only know because I've had a spiritual awakening and I've seen the other side. I've seen the forest through the trees, so to speak. Because you can never see anything besides the perspective that your eyes give you. Have you ever seen anything besides the visions that your eyes give you? Besides through your eyes? No, through your eyes is the only vision you've had. But if you somehow get, because that's the standard for what you know, right? But then if you somehow see something besides the standard that you've set and set a new standard outside of the vision that your eyes give you, then you have now set a new standard for reality and seeing reality in a different way. And that's what happens when you spiritually awaken, is you become aware enough, I guess. You train your subconscious enough. You become present enough. You train your body spiritually enough that you've now become a vessel for the universal energy and information. So you now see things beyond what the Looney Tunes. See, Sesame Street, Looney Tunes, Flintstones, Simpsons, Family Guy. What else? All the shows we love. Tom and Jerry give you an image of what reality is. And that image is put into your head when you're young. And you don't start operating unconsciously until you're an adult. And then once you start operating unconsciously because you give up on life, because you think life's not worth living, and so you'd rather, you don't want to kill yourself because you're afraid of death. They've made you afraid of death because you might go to hell, right? I'll tell you about hell. It's really a creation. Nothing exists in its own right. Hell itself does not exist in its own right, but you create it. It's like Christianity is like the most difficult religion to explain to a modern person because they give you the two opposites, heaven and hell. And that's what it was originally. And they don't believe in the grandfather in the sky. They don't literally believe in the devil as an entity. Original Christianity. But it has been so changed ever since the Council of Nicaea in 325, 326, that now the fish hats of Babylon have tricked us into seeing reality in a certain way. That there are powers outside of our control, and that we might be sent to hell as if it's an actual place. But you know what? We create everything we experience. Everything we experience, we create. There's nothing that we don't create. And so if you expect to see hell, then you'll see it. Because our American culture has the substance of Christianity, the substance of the religion of Christianity. And so in our collective unconscious, Carl Jung's collective unconscious, because all of our brains are really connected all the time. So like you don't really have any private thoughts. You have the thoughts of the entire society. And different types of people, because the society is socially engineered, they create different types of archetypes of people. Those type of people have the similar thoughts, but different thoughts to the other archetypes of people. But all of our thoughts are connected because we're all one. There's only one. So obviously we're all connected. And in this America, in the Western world, we have the background, underlying substance of the Christianity, of the Christianity that we're taught. And they created a place. So there was the whole point of Christianity is it gives the most positive, like the yang, and then the yin, and then the most negative. The best possible, and then the worst possible. The two are the yin and the yang, the constituents of this reality. Basically, the yes and the no, right? The ones and the zero. The positive and the negative, right? That was the representation. And you have to use imagery in mythology in order to describe real things that you can't really describe with words. You got to use imagery and poetic language. So they use the poetic language of heaven and hell, but then the church actually made that a thing. Actually, in talking about the religion itself, they made hell an actual place that you go to. And because they put it into our heads as a possibility, because all possibilities are real. There's no possibility that doesn't exist for our creation. They have given us the possibility of hell, of a place like that. Okay? They've given us that the church has given us that possibility of reality. And so that's in our collective unconscious for all of us. And so you get someone to believe in something, and then they end up creating it. But it doesn't exist in its own right. unless you want to create it. All possibilities are possible. But it doesn't exist in its own right. The only thing that actually exists is the blank page. Is the nothing that reality is, because there couldn't be something without nothing. And the nothing is the underlying substance for the forstance, for the figure, which is the something. So that's why the Buddhists say nothing is real, and it's absolutely right, because there's no thing in the one universe. There's no boundary to it, so that means there's no thing. And also, there needs nothing not real in order for real to incarnate. So in order for us to experience real, there needs a not real for the real to be in. They can't just be real. There has to be the not real, the nothing, in order for the something to be in the nothing. Like there needs to be an empty space in order to put a cookie in the jar. Like that. So nothing is real. And everything is not real. What our experience is what we create with the infinite possibilities. And if they give us the possibility of a place like hell, and people will give testimony, I saw it with my own two eyes and I experienced it. Well, you created it. And people say in testimonies like near-death experience, I saw literally Jesus Christ and I saw literally God. And they talk about God with as the man with the robe and the beard and the sandals. and God funnily said, because that's how God appears to him, because some souls aren't ready for the truth. It's like God put his arm around him and he was like, what if it's just you and me? And he was like, what do you mean, God? And God was like, what if it's just you and me forever and ever? What if? So you experience what you expect to experience. So if you are given the idea of a possibility of reality, then you experience that. So the establishment gives us the possibility of reality in schooling and in religion too. It's like we believe in science and we don't really believe in God anymore, right? So, but we have the underlying substance of the Christianity. So none of us really want to die because we think it's possible I could go to hell. Only if you create it. You can create heaven. But the real thing is, it's just you. The actual truth is that in reality, it's only you. That's the enlightened state. Nirvana is all possibilities are created through you and only you. Through me. I've had the experience myself. It's the blank state. It's nothing, right? So from which everything comes. So that's what. But they give us all the possibility of reality being the way we think it is, of reality being something vague and explained in a simple way, using our measurements and our words. So you give someone a possibility for reality, and then they create it. Especially the entire culture's underlying subconscious beliefs. But Christianity, really, heaven and hell is really the positive and the negative of reality, the good and the bad. But they give us really impossible problems, like the identity of self. So you start thinking about things in terms of the person you think you are. How will I figure this out? What do you mean you? Who's thinking right now? If you actually watch your mind, you'll find you're not thinking. Who is breathing? What is breathing? What breathing can be voluntary but also involuntary. So who's doing it? You're just going on. And then I'm just up here. But then you realize that you're not really the one thinking. You can force thoughts just like you can heave your breath, but your thoughts go on anyways. So you're not the thinker. So you realize that the you think you are doesn't exist, duh. But then who are you? Who are you? So I think there are really actually dark entities in this world, because this world is a pretty dark place. And this world is being cleaned up. There's going to be a whole vibrational shift in the entire world. So all like the darkness will be shown to the light and will go away. So there has been, I firmly know actually that there are dark entities that give you impossible problems. Like Lucifer is the illusion, the impossible problem. So if you try to figure it out, you're going to spin yourself in circles and you're going to go crazy. You're going to be in hell, in the mind state. Well, then you can be in heaven when you trust in God, because you're not getting in your own way. But you get in your own way when you try to figure out impossible problems. And impossible problems stem from an impossible and false identity. And we get that false identity from the society and the school that tells us who we are. The entirety of education is really just telling us who we are. And so is society. That's why it's the reality show. It's like, I am this, you are that. But really, we're just consciousness in bodies. But we tell each other that we're this and we're that in implicit and explicit ways. And it's like grown adults do this because nobody knows. Nobody knows except me, the 21-year-old. And other people. I'm not the only one. But grown-ass men tell each other who they are. In terms of, you are this and I am that. Implicitly and explicitly. But really we're all equal. Really we're all one. And really we're all consciousness. But no, everybody's tricked by the appearance. By the visual appearance. That's why you gotta see past someone's body movement and their energy and their vibes. Someone has bad vibes doesn't mean they're a bad person. That's what I learned. That unconscious people are solely sniffing the vibes, but they don't really see reality for how it is because they're using their mind because it's easier. They don't have to feel with their emotions, with their feelings. But they're just using their minds all day. And they go off their vibes, someone's vibes, their energy. And if you get some sort of tricky energy, you think someone's up to something. Doesn't mean that's so. So it's like only conscious people can use discernment. Unconscious people are playing the personality game, telling each other who they are. And that's the impossible problem. I'm not a personality. You're not a personality. I'm not me. What do you mean by me? Show me you. What do you mean by me? What do you mean by you? What do you mean? Show me you. You think your boundary ends at your skin? You don't think there's air all around you connecting you to everything? So in reality, that's the truth, that we are actually everything there is. But we ignore that because why, even if we're told the facts, that there's air that connects us all. Okay, so we are connected. So what does that mean? Oh, we're all one? And go back to playing the personality game. Because everybody is Homer Simpson. Everybody is Peter Griffin. Everybody is Fred Flintstone. And that's what the U.S. government wants you to be. So they can control you. You know, they canceled my credit card for buying a flight. For buying a flight. Buying a plane ticket. They didn't cancel it. They said they're investigating it. You ain't coming around to me. Just wait until I get my confidence back. I'm gonna be on the TV, mama. I'm gonna sit down. But yeah, so I'll be right back. But reality is so much different than we think it is. So much different than we think it is. So much different. We are the creators of our reality. Hell doesn't exist. Heaven doesn't exist. Well, heaven is interesting. Hell definitely doesn't exist unless you create it for yourself in your own brain, in your own reality. You know what? You know what they do? So you know how you discipline a child by making them, by training them like a dog, basically, right? You punish them and make them feel guilty and bad, and then they begin to think that they're bad people. Subconsciously, the children, so they'll do what you're told, right? I'm bad. Hell is for a place for bad people, right? And if you're a bad person, then you suffer. So if you think you're a bad person, you're going to want to suffer. And the more people tell you you're a bad person, the more you think you're a bad person, then the more you're going to create a place for bad people in your consciousness. And so you might see in a vision or when you die, but then at the last moment you'd be like, okay, Jesus save me, and then he saves you. But it's not an actual place. But that's how they trick you. They created the place. They created the idea, gave us the possibility for the place, gave us the possibility for some place like that existing, and they make us feel like we're worthy of being in that imaginary place. And so if they get us all to manifest it or think about it, then it's real in our world. In our world, it's real. It's really not. But heaven, so this world that we live in is like a shadow of the real fourth dimension. Is like the real world of this, the real version of this world is heaven. And people go to heaven for younger souls, and they see and it's just great. You know, heaven's just amazing. And it's a place for people who can't handle the full truth. And for souls, just they have to go there, because how if you're a young soul, and how could you accept the fact that it's all you? How could you accept that everything is you, the entirety of being? If you're a young soul and you're unexperienced in this life, in this game, in this school called life, some souls just can't handle the fact that of the whole truth, that it's just them, right? So after a while, the spirit guards start telling them, say, all right, you've had a good time here, but it's time to go back. And say, what do you mean go back? Say, it's time to go back. And you got to go back because you got to learn more. You got to keep learning until you have passed your lessons and you've actually learned. And then at a certain point, you can realize it's all me. But I think my soul is ready for I'm ready for the fact that realizing that everything is just me. the ultimate orgasm is just, it's all me. Literally, because it's all one. And am I separate from the one? So it's like, it's not the me that I think I am, but it's the me that avoids the inspection because it's the inspector. So I could never inspect the inspector. The inspector could never see itself. It could never. So the me is the one, that is the entirety of being, which everybody is, but they just don't know, is the inspector that inspects. And you can never inspect the inspector because you are the inspector. Right? So it's not the you think you are, because you can't think about yourself, your actual self, because you never know yourself. Just in the same way, you can never see your actual face. So I'm ready for enlightenment, and at a certain point in this life, I'm going to become enlightened, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to help people become enlightened themselves. And the Christ consciousness is when everybody wakes up to the fact that this is a dream. This is the dream of the self, the dream of the Godhead. And that's my mission here. And that's why I'm doing these videos, to set the butterfly effect. I don't care how many people watch them. As long as I put them out there, maybe I'll get seen. And then the effect will be there. But so yeah, that's enlightenment.